Hello. Okay, let's get started. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Welcome to this event. I especially appreciate it because I feel like most people here probably don't know what is even going on tonight.
No, I'll go this way.
So I really appreciate your faith in this space and in coming out. Okay, so we have a ton to talk about. I will try to just dive right into this. I have been working on this art project in one form or another for about the last decade of my life. Kind of crazy. And so in order to explain it, there's sort of a lot of context, and maybe it helps to sort of start with the ending, sort of the culmination of this project. It happened just a couple weeks ago on the campus of University of Southern California in Los Angeles. So I'd like to play you a brief, 15-second clip of a protest that happened on the campus of USC. Just loading the video. And we're waiting it.
Tell me what democracy looks like!
Technology, folks. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on.
Where's school? Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Tell me what democracy...
Okay, so there are about 40 people at this protest. It looks probably like an ordinary sort of campus protest. And as you can see, if I can get it to the next slide, here we go. Yeah, there's a person with a bullhorn, they have signs, they seem in a sort of a pitch of social justice furor, if you will. And yeah, they marched through campus, they spread their message, people said, what the hell is going on? And the thing is, I should tell you that these protesters were in fact hired. They were paid protesters. This was not an organic outpouring of outrage. They were hired by none other than George Soros. No. They were hired by me. I hired these people. Which begs the question, why would one do this? Why would you hire protesters to pretend to be outraged about something? And it sort of gets into the details of this project. So basically, what this is, this project that I've been sort of being coy about, is I'm calling it an online novel. And it is a website. This is the landing page of the site. And basically, the premise of the site is that this person, Madam Nice Gun, which is an anagram of my name, I was being very sneaky, says that some crime has occurred on USC's campus. They feel it was not properly investigated, so they have quote unquote hacked the investigation materials and are now releasing them to the public. So those investigation materials include a lot of different things, but it also includes the phone data of some of these main characters. So for the period of time during which this story takes place, which it takes place from August of 2023 to November of 2023. So this happened, about a year ago. And for the period of time during which this story takes place, I populated these characters' phone data. So you can read on the website, and these are all stills taken, images taken from the site. You can go through these characters' phones just like you would your own. You can read their text messages, their internet history, their calls, their notes, but also things like their Instagrams and their photos. And so to that end, I went out and hired a bunch of different actors to embody these personas. These are some of the actors I hired. You'll notice that this woman right here has a USC sash on there. She did a graduation photo shoot. Lovely. And I then sent these actors in character to real-life events on and around campus. So that means I sent them to parties on campus. I sent them to clubs. I sent them on Tinder dates. And there is now a network of real human beings who believe that these fictional characters actually exist. And these real people are truly invested in their lives and in the story of this project. So, for example, this is a party I sent some of these actors to. This is a Christian group that had a charity run that one of the actors went to. This is a surreptitious photo I took of a Tinder date. This is a tailgate where some of the actors got to mingle with some of these people, some real students, etc. And so, they exchange socials with these real people. So they're sort of on the same plane of reality as the real people when it comes to these social media platforms. Also, I play a character named Chad Valentine. Chad is the lawyer for Madam Nice Gun. You can check out Chad's legal website. He's also popping off on Twitter, so but he's a good guy. Okay, so I've explained sort of the what of this project. What is this thing? It's an online novel. But again, I think we're sort of in the same place of this begs the question, okay, still, why would you do this? Why would you send these fictional people to pretend to be real people? And I think then it is appropriate to sort of get into some of the themes of the project and the story itself. Because I've been saying there's an online novel. What is the story? And so this is based off of something that happened to me when I went to USC, where a guy tried to drug me. And it really divided my friend group, where half the people sort of believed me, half the people did not. And it was a very bizarre experience to be in a position where people are sort of questioning your fundamental connection with reality. And this particular sort of crime is unlike a murder, which leaves a body, or a theft, where an item has gone missing. This particular kind of crime, in this case, doesn't have to leave any physical evidence at all. It is purely someone telling a story to somebody else. And all stories are abstractions of reality, in the sense that they do not, quote unquote, exist in the wild. They must quite literally be fabricated into being, and therefore stories are vulnerable. They can have holes poked in them. They are vulnerable to interpretation as well as to doubt. So what is this story? It's not quite my story. I took my story and accentuated it, dramatized it, and reconfigured it so it's not based, none of these characters are people I know or myself or anything like that. But the sort of two main characters, if you want to follow along this story, are these two fellows who are roommates. They live in an apartment with 4 guys, including themselves, and this fellow Adam Kessler on the left is our, quote-unquote villain who allegedly drugs Jacob, our character on the right, and before anything can happen, one of their other roommates gets home, Adam kind of scrambles off, and the next morning Jacob wakes up and believes that he's been drugged by his roommate. And then in the sort of, that happens on October 28th of 2023, and then in sort of the chaos that follows, a bunch of things happen, and then on November 12th of 2023, Jacob overdoses accidentally on Xanax. Adam, his roommate, goes back to the apartment, finds his body, and waits an hour to call the police, and therefore, Jacob's family sues Adam for a civil suit for wrongful death, claiming, hey, you waited too long to call the police, and therefore we're holding you liable. That is and Adam's family pays a chunk of money to settle the suit, and that is ultimately why Madam Nice Gun hacks this civil suit to say, hey, not so fast, you're not getting away with it that easily. I'm going to divulge this to the public and they can decide for themselves. Cool, so that is the basic outline of what motivates the story, is sort of the why. But I think it is also worth talking about like why tell this particular story in this particular way. Because I believe that sort of the form of this thing and the content are quite aligned. So, as I said, these characters all exist on social media. And in social media, you know, these are platforms where we present curated versions of our identity. We pick and choose what we display. And in that sense, the difference between a quote-unquote real person on one of these platforms and an actor playing a person and, say, a bot is much more, the difference between them is much more minimal than we'd like to imagine. I am, just by way of background, I'm a software engineer professionally, and in engineering and math, it's really about finding answers in many ways, whereas in the arts, I believe it's more about sort of framing the question. And so I believe that the form of this thing and the subject matter are sort of driving at some of the same questions, a sample of which I've given here. Like, what does it really mean to know somebody? How should we assess what's real when we have imperfect access to reality? And to what degree is it even important to have access to what's real? So, for instance, you know, these real students who believe that these fictional characters actually exist, they still don't know that these are fictional characters. And they're living their lives all the same. Does that matter? And yeah, so I would say that sort of form and content here are more or less aligned. And I thought that that was interesting on like an artistic level. Okay, so I've explained the what and the why of this project. I want to show you the site. I'm going to go through the sort of major sections of the site. Here are the 4 main sections. I mentioned the phone data, where you can look through the characters' phones. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket. You more or less know what that looks like. Let's start with the timeline section. Okay, so in the timeline section, you can go through characters' phone data in chronological order. I thought this was important for a few reasons. One, you know, this is you can explore this site in a very non-linear way. This is a way of presenting what happened in a linear fashion. And you can also sort of compare and contrast what different characters were doing on their phones at different periods of time. And I was quite meticulous in terms of how I planned and scheduled all this data so that there are things to learn from comparing people's phones side by side. So for instance, Jacob and Adam at one time say that they're going to hang out some evening. And then Adam gets a text from his girlfriend saying, you know, let's grab dinner. Adam, by the way, has a girlfriend during this. Poor her. He doesn't go ahead and tell Jacob quite yet. He cancels at the last minute, and he invents some sort of fabrication for why he can't make it. So in other words, you get a sense of, oh, this person's lying to this other person, and you can go through their phone data and compare it chronologically to understand that. Another example is Adam's girlfriend, Blair, is texting. You can see him texting, Adam and Blair are texting each other and they're saying, you know, lovey-dovey things. And then in Blair's phone at the same time, you can see that she's just gone in her notes app and she's writing about sort of negative feelings she's uncovered about him recently in her therapy session that morning. So basically, this just says, you know, hey, this timeline thing, you can say, hey, Adam Kessler, September 7th, 2023, 9 a.m., checking his email, click on that, it pulls up the phone app, and yeah, that's a way of looking at data chronologically. Okay, I said this was a civil suit. It's not criminal, by the way. This actually happened to someone from my high school, and when I say happened to, he gave somebody cocaine, they overdosed, and then he didn't call the police. Not one of my good friends. Not one of my friends at all. But he wound up getting sued and settled and stuff like that. So this is a thing that happens. And basically in this section right here, it's called witness testimonies. This forms the narrative backbone of the project. So if you just want to know what happened, you can go to this section of the site. And it goes through all the motions of the lawsuit. So it'll have, Adam's notes that he prepared for a call with his lawyer. You can go look at a Zoom transcript of an interview with another witness. You can look at the final email between Jacob Hatch's parents and their lawyer where they, accept the settlement. And in all these different pieces, there are links to different other pieces of data on the site. So a lawyer might be interviewing someone and say, hey, you said you were doing this at this period of time, but a text message on your phone says otherwise, and then you can click on a link to the text message and it'll pop up, the phone will overlay on top of that, and it's sort of a way of exploring the data as well. Okay, then the final of the 4 sections is the miscellaneous evidence. And this just has everything that doesn't go in the other 3 sections. So I'll talk about some of the stuff in here. There's an obituary for Jacob. I actually got a real obituary published in a newspaper, the Branson. He's from Branson, Missouri. Their editorial standards are quite low. So I was able to get an obituary published in their paper. There's a data analysis piece where Madam Nice Gun does sort of like data analysis of the phone data, charts things out, which I think is an interesting way to sort of explore a character. And there's a bunch of other things. Okay, I have shown you now the sort of main crux of like what the site looks like, how it's organized. Here's the thing, I put so much effort into this, and there are so many rabbit holes to go down. I can't possibly show you everything that's here, but I want to show you a small fraction of what's available to just give you an idea of what's possible on this site. Okay, let's go through some of these tidbits, starting with this one. This is a play, a 1-act play that I had the characters stage, where for a couple reasons. One, it was sort of a plot device. It's a student play, and so it's sort of a plot device to get some of the characters to meet each other. But also it has like thematic resonance with the larger project, where the play is called The Prophet, and it takes one of these like CNBC reality show hosts, and who turns around struggling small businesses, and in this case he's turning around the business of heaven, where he says, hey, no one's been through your doors for the past 2,000 years, no one's been through your gates rather. And we need to get some more foot traffic to your business. Maybe your son Jesus is big with the youth. We can make him into an influencer. And also one of the characters on their phone, their Photos app on their phone took pictures of the screenplay for the play. And so you can look at that and sort of read portions of the play as well. Okay, there's an entire fake literary journal that has its own website. This main website, MadamNiceGun.com, also goes by onfactsandfeelings.com. It links to a bunch of other websites as well. So this kind of traverses the internet. But yeah, so this fake literary journal, it has a review of a non-existent story by the author Borges, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. He does a lot of things with like metafiction and blurring the line between fiction and reality. So again, I thought it was appropriate. One of the characters' dads writes an entire book and publishes it on Amazon. This is available for purchase. You'll notice it's published on September 10th, 2023. One of the things I would like to sort of point out about this is that pretty much all literature is written asynchronously, meaning you sit down to write a story, you get up, you can go by your day, you can sort of finish it whenever you want. A publisher might set a deadline, but it's more or less arbitrary. Things don't have to be published on a certain time, whereas that's not the case in a project like this. This involves synchronous writing, where if a character is posting something to their Instagram, it has to be posted at a certain time for it to make sense in the context of the story. Same with this book, for instance. And so in the same way that, I really like this, by the way, because it's, I feel like the fact that it is written synchronously is sort of, again, resonant with the larger themes of this project, where, it would be very easy to sort of describe what I'm doing as being like a quote-unquote puppet master and like trying to like pull the strings of reality, where I don't feel like that way at all, because I feel much more often that this process has involved a sort of surrendering to publishing a certain time or place. Like everything is contingent on something that actually is real. And that sometimes intrudes on my ideas of what the story could be. Okay, on a similar note, wanted to bring up these notes on a character, Claire's phone, where she talks about how a lot of dictators are failed artists. We all know Hitler was a painter, but so was Franco. Saddam wrote romance novels. Mao wrote bad poetry, so did Stalin. Very interesting trend, and she sort of points out that these dictators who sort of failed in their art in all the same ways. All their art was very forced and inorganic, and probably they looked at art as an arena where they could exert their omnipotence over a sort of square of reality that was all theirs to control. And when they were frustrated and weren't able to achieve what they wanted, they then turned to politics, an arena where you could actually do that. Sort of making the point that, again, art, anyone who's felt what it's like to be creative knows that it really often doesn't feel like a self-willed thing. It more often feels like a channeling of something else, and involves a surrendering, where if you try to bring your ego into the process, it's more like putting a boulder in a stream. You're really just interrupting the flow. And so she makes the quip that an artist is a vessel, and a vessel by definition cannot be full of itself. And contrast this with Adam's attitude, where he's, Adam, our villain, is much more domineering. He drugs a fellow human being. He sort of tries to, instead of being willing to sort of take things as they are, he tries to force situations the most extreme way possible. And so these attitudes are contrasted. Okay, what else? One of the characters, Adam, has a Substack that you can go read. He writes an essay about catfishing, which again, you could certainly accuse me of doing. But in his view, he sort of defends it. And I felt it was appropriate to have someone, discuss this topic. He defends it on the grounds that, after all we ever have is an idea of each other. None of us has true access to one's inner experience and thoughts. And so, that idea is part reality and part fiction, based on our perceptions or limited information. And so everyone we see and interact with already is part fiction. And, again, in his essay, argues that with the rise of AI getting better and better, it'll become so, the tools to catfish people online will become so adept that we will no longer be able to distinguish between who's a quote-unquote real person and who's not. And it'll get to a point where maybe that doesn't matter. And so Adam's big on catfishing. Okay, Claire, she has her own website where she publishes poetry and short stories. Lily, who's the best friend of the character Jacob, who passes away, she creates a painting after his death. This painting is called Death Shaking Up an Etch-a-Sketch Before Giving It Back to Life. And it is part AI generated and part done with my own watercolors. And so, again, sort of driving at this notion of being unable to discern what's organic, what's artificial, what's human-made, what's machine. Okay, and the character Blair, yes, Blair and Claire, they rhyme. And I could talk about that more later, but there's too much stuff to go through. Blair has a sort of photography project where, for most people, this image probably looks AI generated. It is not. I took this on a cell phone. It's meant to look AI generated, though. And so, again, driving at this idea of one of the sort of the threads in this project is the rise of AI. And being in a situation where, because of generative AI, it not only makes it easier to sort of deceive people, but also makes it harder for us to perceive something as real, even when it is. Just sort of creates a situation of doubt. Blair also has another photography project called, she describes it as being metaphotography. Pictures of people taking pictures of people. I thought this was interesting because on these social media platforms like Instagram or like LinkedIn, where we really feel a need to like brand ourselves, we're kind of cast in the role of mini performers, which has been noted before. But I found it sort of interesting to capture people in the process of putting on their sort of performance for the camera. I also found it ironic in a larger sense. Because I've hired performers to perform on these performative platforms. Trying to suggest this idea of what I said earlier, where the difference between a quote-unquote real person and an actor on social media not being that different, I'm also suggesting that maybe there is a real difference, because clearly we don't feel the same way about these things. We're almost done with these tidbits. I know there's a lot. But this is a note in Adam's phone where it talks about how how much of who we are, how we express ourselves, is shaped by the technological mediums that we use to do that. So he makes a note of the fact that oftentimes, I don't know about you all, but I've certainly had this conundrum when texting someone of whether or not to add an exclamation point at the end of my sentence. I don't want to add it because I don't feel like yippee, but I don't not want to add it because I don't want to seem like I'm being flat and uninterested. And so oftentimes I find myself adding it. And so I'm in a case where I'm sort of inflating the message to overcompensate for this like lossy signal of just pure text. And really, in order like to not be misunderstood by the receiver, I'm sort of expressing myself in a way that I don't really feel. So Adam makes the point that part of who we are is already bot-like, in the sense that like how we think and express ourselves is sort of following many of the grooves that the mental grooves that technology has laid down for us. This is the last slide about the tidbits. I sent these actors to so many places. I sent them to Disneyland. This is them at a bar near campus. This is two of the actors having a blast in West Hollywood. Actually, I like this because in a nice moment of serendipity, these two actors, there's a video of them on one of the characters' phones, of them singing along to that song where it's like, "That's Not My Name." I just thought it was nice because they're assuming somebody else's identity and singing along to that. Cool. So I've shown you some of the tidbits. I've shown you some of the things that might be interesting, but there's so much stuff there that you can check out. I've released this project. I told you at the beginning of this whole thing that I put on this protest, and so it's out in the world. I want to sort of get into the reaction to it, the sort of preliminary reaction. And on this note, one of the essays that Adam writes on his Substack is about how we are living in an information environment today where the amount of information is exponentially more than has ever existed in human history. This is literally true. The amount of information in the last 10 years is more than the amount of recorded information in the last 10,000 years prior to that. And so we're in unprecedented times. And we have this volume of information hitting our brains at any given point of time. And so we just don't have as much cognitive bandwidth to give to each individual data point that comes our way. And furthermore, Adam writes in this Substack essay of his, points out that the human brain is very well attuned for threats. It's always constantly looking for things that could threaten its physical harm or its beliefs, etc. And so if anything that comes our way is even ambiguous, it's much safer cognitively to label it as a threat. We see this often on Twitter, where someone writes something on the timeline that it's not necessarily clear what side they're on, and a lot of people get really upset at them because they think they're saying things that they're not, because they're not loudly screaming whose side they're on. And we need that when we have a timeline of tons of tweets. So long preamble to say, I think there's a lesson there in terms of how some people have reacted in the early stages to this thing. So, I was recently contacted by a reporter at the SF Standard. They said, hey Duncan, a few readers were upset about the Madam Nice Gun site. Any interest in publishing a statement through my newsletter? I have not responded to this person. Now, you might say, well, hang on a second, Duncan. I thought this was going under the Madam Nice Gun pseudonym. How did this person find you? Good question. By the way, for anyone here, if you're tweeting or posting about this, I'm still trying to pretend to go under the Madam Nice Gun pseudonym. So if you do post about it, and I hope you do, just try not to say my name quite yet. Thank you. Okay, so how did this person find me? Well, it gets into how I promoted this thing. Okay, so I mentioned this protest that I had. And you can see a post about this on the USC subreddit. Got about 100 comments. Go us. I should mention, this subreddit, like, these are students. Please don't brigade it and do whatever. They're like 20-year-olds. And anyway, I also put a bunch of flyers around Los Angeles and around campus. Here's one where it has a picture of this Adam Kessler actor. It has Adam Kessler's name and says, "This guy drugged and tried to rape my friend. I hacked his cell phone and am now releasing it to the world. Go ahead and take a look." And it's a QR code that leads to his actual cell phone. It also has, I mentioned that there were two links to this site on Facts and Feelings, which, by the way, is taken from Ben Shapiro's famous saying, "Facts don't care about your feelings." I thought that was appropriate. In the context of this project, I'm not a Ben Shapiro fan, to be clear. And then there's MadamNiceGun.com. And also, I got I nabbed the coveted collegeattemptedrape.com, which... Listen, I don't want to say what I had to do to get that. It cost an arm and a leg. A lot of bitters. Anyway, there was this post on this Reddit, and let's look at some of the comments. Okay, some of the comments were very funny. Someone said, quote, "Fake protests about fictional events are okay. Real protests about Gaza? Straight to jail." Someone else said something very interesting. And they said, "I did some snooping around, and when you search Madam Nice Gun on Twitter, I found this tweet, where if you click on the account, it features a pinned tweet that links to a partyful event for an event in NYC. The organizers of this event are Sovereign House and Duncan Gammy. Blah, blah, blah. Overall, a pretty interesting and weird art project. I'm curious how it'll develop. Maybe someone local to NYC can try attending the opening event." So, if you're here from Reddit, welcome. I hope you enjoy Sovereign House. Okay. I also got some people were a little miffed. This person posted on Madam Nice Gun has a subreddit as well, where if you want to go down some rabbit holes and post about that, that's all fun and good. This person posted on there, and it got auto removed by Reddit. I didn't remove this person's post. It sort of said, hey, you're fishing for sympathy to get attention for your quote-unquote art and contributing to the lack of trust/belief that sexual assault victims face. Now, I don't believe that's true. However, I do believe that it is important to address it because it is the exact opposite of what I'm trying to achieve. So I sent a long message to this person explaining the project, and I said, on the question of whether it will contribute to a lack of trust of survivors, I don't believe it will for a few reasons. One, people immediately realized it wasn't real, which if anything suggests to the public that hoaxes, quote unquote, of this kind are easily identifiable. Two, this is coming from my experience. I'm writing about my own thing, and I wanted to be able to express myself about that. And three, this took years of effort, a ton of money and time, and I just can't see it becoming a thing in people's minds when they hear about similar cases that they might think to themselves like, oh, maybe this is like a weird experimental art project that's going on. I don't think that'll become a thing. But I wanted to address that. Okay, so this journalist, this person who I messaged with a long explanation on Reddit, immediately took my words and sent it to a journalist, and this person published this article. Now, they said the website alleges USC murder rape. It's bullshit. Here's the thing. I could, nitpick and say, well, you got a couple basic facts wrong. I don't allege murder. It's an accidental overdose. Own alternate reality, and sensationalizing things. And truly, I consider this this journalist to be, maybe a comrade in arms, if anything else. Okay, I've talked about the reaction now. We're almost done, folks. We're in the home stretch. I just want to sort of spend some time here at the end talking a little bit about like what I sort of hope to achieve here. This a few paragraphs or a few pages get flit around to different people in the room, etc. And now it has arrived at the form it's taken today. Okay, where do I think this is? Like, I'd like to maybe situate this in a larger like art historic context, where I believe technology sort of defines the limits of what is possible in any given artistic medium. Information in the same way. I call this an online novel. Why call it a novel? Well, it's a primarily text-based medium, and traditionally the novel has been the most capacious of mediums, being able to sort of pull in poems and poetry and screenplays, etc. I believe this sort of asserts the novel to its rightful place. I would also say the history of Western art has been, so far, has been a history of moving from a rules-based order to breaking down those rules. Where we look in poetry, you have meter and rhyme, and now you can do away with those things. In music, we went from tonal to atonal to like John Cage, where it's like weird dissonant sounds. In painting, you go from representation to abstraction. But the thing is, we have now broken all the rules. There are no more rules to break in these mediums. You cannot shock me. There's, many of you probably saw someone taped a banana to the wall at Art Basel. Like, it's almost worse than boring. We have broken down these rules, and it's almost like childlike to be stomping on the ruins. I believe that even though there may not be a notion of progress as such in the arts, is the art of today really better than the 1500s? I wouldn't make that claim. But we are expanding the possibilities. And one way of doing that for the longest time, of expanding the possibilities, has been breaking rules. And now we're in a position where I think we must create new rules and new forms in order to move forward. People are, and this is the last slide, so we're almost done here, folks. People are hungry for an avant-garde, particularly I think in literature. But if you're hungry for that, I think we also ought to realize that avant-gardes of the past have almost always been downstream of technological changes. What do I mean by that? Well, Impressionism and abstraction in art really only made sense when photography became a thing, because now if we have a perfect representational instrument, clearly painting can't just be about representation. Interestingly enough, stream of consciousness in literature really became a thing after the introduction of film, in like the early 1900s. Because if you want to portray external events, just a person standing up, walking across a room, the best possible medium for that has to be film. It's so much more high fidelity. In that sense, the picture really is worth 1,000 words. And so writers recognize this, and that is when they started turning further inward. There have been a ton of technological changes in the past 50 years. And literature, unlike music, where there's great software for people to be like a bedroom producer, or visual art, where people are using Photoshop, or even some artists are embracing Midjourney, literature really has not caught up. Even ebooks don't really offer new features. They're sort of just the old book slapped on a EPUB or a PDF, and it's not really a new mode of literary production. Audiobooks, same deal. We've had oral literature for thousands of years. And so we have a problem here. We have an opening, I should say. There's a lot of fresh powder to play around in and to do something new in. And this is a problem I intend to continue working on in one form or another. I hope this is a good first step in the right direction. And I truly believe that this project resembles what literature 100 years from now looks like more than anything else out there. You can go to onfactsandfeelings.com. Thank you very much. Okay, I know that was very long, so if you feel a need to wiggle or anything like that, do your thing. But okay, I've been working on this in like the dark for like 10 years, so I'm dying for questions. Please. Yes, you, sir.
What do the actors think about this?
Good question. So it depends. Some of the actors, it's like literally just a job. But other actors have gotten like really into it, where the actor who plays Lily, her grandma calls her for like weekly updates on like what's going on. I've met some of these actors' friends, and some of them are like really into it. Most of them are excited. Some were worried about, what if I go on a Tinder date with someone and it's like amazing, and I'm like, oh no. Actually, I should say, the actress Lily, she went to that Christian group, and the first like meeting she went to, they were saying like wild stuff like, Muslims, they all go to hell, right? And someone was like, hey, we're not Jews here, right? And the actor who was playing Lily is half Jewish, and so she was like, oh crap, but she was a real trooper and pulled through. So Erica Fisher, we love her. Okay, sorry, next question. Yes, you please.
Were there any repercussions for the actor that played Adam with his face being on those flyers? And what do you get if you buy the book on Amazon?
You get a book. There was no repercussions for Adam. The actor who played him, and he's been a terrific sport throughout this entire thing. And he also signed a contract where I can use his picture however I want. But that's not. But he's been a great sport. Yes, you, sir.
What was the budget? How did you fund this for those 10 years?
Right, yeah, so the really like the sort of the white heat of this thing has been in the past 3 years, where it's taken on this online novel form. And as I mentioned, I'm a software engineer, so I've used my sort of software engineering winnings to put towards this. And the project, I haven't done the final tabulation, but it's between like 150 and 170. Okay, yes.
At what point did you decide? At what point and why did you decide? Okay, I'm going to hire a bunch of actors and make this whole big project out of your like original novel.
Right. Well, I had long had an idea of giving people access to a character's file system, because if you just look at somebody's like internet history, it's like you know so much about them, and like there have been like novels in the past where it's like two people writing letters back and forth to each other. That's like a very like 1800s way of taking someone's personal artifacts and like making a story out of it. I just have felt for a long time that this would be like a good way of doing it, and I was at a point where I was sort of frustrated with the novel, but wanted to like continue working on it. And I realized that I had this idea in the back of my head, and I was like, well, maybe I can combine these two things. And I was like, oh, like this is gonna take a lot of work if I do this. And so I just started like mapping it out, and then sort of like before I knew it, I was like head first in doing it. Yes.
Yeah, so the picture that's supposed to look AI generated.
Yes.
You said I'm guessing, so the things in it are also not AI generated?
Very perceptive, Harry. Yes. Parts of like the McDonald's logo, I made on Midjourney and printed it out. So
Okay.
I'm being a little fibber, but that's okay because that's in the spirit of the project too. Yes.
In the context of an online novel, does the website steer you in certain directions, or is it just like open to your perusing?
Well, it's certainly open to your perusing, but when you first get on the landing page, you click what's called a continue the case summary. It takes you to the witness testimonies page, so you're diving into the narrative, but you can branch out from there. Yes.
As you go down the rabbit holes, are there any that if you miss one or two, you totally don't get the point of the whole novel?
No, I don't think so. No, I hope that the sort of the point of this is, I hope the organization of this is more like fractal-like, where you sort of just like get like sort of a reinforcement and maybe like sort of like finer level of detail of like what I'm trying to quote unquote say when you go down these rabbit holes, and not like, oh, you miss out on like a big idea or something like that. Yes, please.
Are you doing any promoting beyond this event?
It's a good question. So I said the protest. I have been contacting some influencers to like post about this, and I was kind of hoping you guys would like post about it. So that'd be kind of sick. But good question. I'm more a builder guy. I'm not so much self-promotion guy. But maybe I need to get better at that. Yes, please. Thank you.
I know you got exposed a little quickly after the protest, but was your original goal to not get exposed and to like leave it outstanding for a period of time and like let people think about it?
I thought it was going to take longer for them to find out, but I didn't try that hard to cover my tracks. I mean, Chad Valentine's clearly me in a wig. I thought that people might come out, but I don't think I'm ever going to confirm and say, yes, this was me. I think I'll continue to be coy about it. Yes, please.
How do you think the project changes, or people's like interpretation of it changes if they're reading it for the first time, going through it for the first time after knowing, let's say they know it's not a real story, not an actual event. How does that change, how does that experience change in your opinion than it would if someone who was reading it thinking it was something that actually occurred?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I am the person who created this, so it's a little bit harder for me to put myself in that person's head. But I believe that everything I've talked about here tonight is like embedded in the project, and that you can find all of this in the project itself, and you can hopefully get the same thing out of it as you would knowing all these things. But there's so much stuff on the site that like I think one of the benefits of like getting a presentation like this is just having like a distillation of like, hey, here's like, if you don't have time to look through all this, like here's what it is. So maybe that would be the benefit. Yes, please.
Hi. Good job.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like, what you want the audience, us, Reddit, whatever, to take out of this whole thing. Like, is it that you ultimately want to be an author, or you want to understand like the dissemination of fake information, or you want to walk us through your experience. Like, what was your personal motivation for this?
So I have no goals.
Okay.
So kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where I was saying that like, oh, art is really good at like framing a question. I sort of just want to like leave people with these like questions and have them explore those on their own. And hopefully this is like a good vehicle for that. So like really what I would love is some of like the best and most like profound experiences in my life have been like interacting with a piece of art. So if someone has like a great time and feels like they're, you know, expanded on any level, interacting with this, I'd be like, hell yeah, that would be sweet. So like maybe that, which is like bold statement, but yeah, cool. Yes, sir.
Question about where's the ethical line on this? So the most popular type of novel sold is a romance novel.
Right.
So I'm imagining like a romance novel version of this, where it's either like two actors that are dating, and that's the lives, or it's like, you know, you have one actor who's acting and the other one who's
Right.
as a, you know. So I'm curious, like, as you know, let's say it's expanding this, you know, the scope of what you're trying to do to other types of, you know, real life fiction learning pieces.
Yeah.
Like, where do you see the line being drawn?
Yeah. Well, okay, on the subject of the romance thing, so one of the things I made very clear to the actors going on these Tinder dates is you cannot physically touch anybody. And I actually supervised all the Tinder dates. I was like 20 feet away at all times and observing, because that actually is illegal. It's considered sex by fraud, because you're pretending to be another person. Interestingly, the US government, when they've infiltrated some activist groups, they have not minded these laws. But that's a whole other story. And anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. But yeah, so where's the line? I don't necessarily think in any like ethical matter that it's like quite as simple as saying like, here is the line. We sort of have to take these things on a case-by-case basis. And in this particular case, I think it's certainly getting quite close to whatever line there might be. But I ultimately feel comfortable with what's happened, partly because it's not like these relationships these actors formed with these real people. This is not like their best friend or anything like that. They were not boyfriend and girlfriend with anyone, as I said. You know, I tried to steer clear of that. But like in terms of other potential situations, when I present this like whatever form of literature, it can go in like many different directions. It doesn't necessarily have to be like someone pretending to be real and not being real. It could be a lot of different things. But where's the line? TBD. Depends on the case. Okay, I know you all have been sitting for so long, so I almost want to, let's do like two more questions. You sir seem to be having your hand up. Yes?
You have to write so much material in like, as different people,
Yeah.
and in different styles. Was that hard? Did you have like a process of how to appear as different people and it's all coming back to you?
Right. I have anecdotally been told, well, okay, so I emailed a bunch of MFA students to like serve as editors. Most of them didn't reply. But one did, and her name is Maya Frida Bernstein Chalet. What a mouthful. But great editor. She is an MFA like professor. I sort of sent her certain things that I was like, hey, is this like how like a college-aged woman, for instance, might talk? She'd be like, no, you pig. No, she didn't say that. You know, it's just like things like that. But a lot of it was just, you know, like the thing is we do have access to like a ton of material out there from like the internet of like, you know, hey, like here's like some woman's tweets, like hey, here's some like dudes who's like 19 in college tweets, whatever. So I sort of was like listening in that sense, and then yeah, just tried to put it out in front of people who like identify with that group and say like, hey, is this like roughly similar? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll do 2 more. I'm hungry for questions, but yeah, if you're not able to ask it, just come up to me afterwards. Okay. You, sir, in the back.
Is that me?
That's you.
So seeing how this whole thing played out, everything you learned, if you had to set this whole thing up again, what would you have done differently to try and bring this art form to how you wanted it to be? Like, what were your learnings and how did you do it differently?
I would have tried with all of my might not to have said it in Los Angeles. So basically, I moved to Los Angeles for this project, and I lived there for a year during like the time during which the story took place. I had to like change jobs, etc., to like make it work. Guys, like, you're not getting the picture? Like, it took a lot of fucking effort. Yeah. But prior to that, I was like, like traveling the world or whatever and working remotely, and it was great. And then I moved to LA, which I didn't like very much. But now I'm here in New York, and I'm loving it. And I heard the author Robert Caro, who wrote a biography of Lyndon Johnson, he took his wife to the hill country of Texas, sort of like really backwaters of Texas, and because he felt like he had to understand where LBJ, grew up. And she asked him, like, why couldn't you have written a biography of Napoleon? And I think that is one thing that, like, it sounds like, it sounds maybe like trivial, but it's not. I don't want to live in LA again. So that would be one thing I would try. I happen to know all about USC, so that made it like easier. Yeah, and then I sort of know how to tackle a project like this again. This whatever next thing I do will not take this long. So yeah. Okay. Are you okay? Oh man. Okay, I'm trying to read the vibe here. Are people like desperate to get out of their seats? Because otherwise I'll get these. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're shaking. You're nodding. Okay. We'll do one more question. Yes, sir.
All right. Nathan Fielder recently had a similar sort of project. How do you feel about his take on a similar?
You talking about the rehearsal?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. So for people who don't know, his rehearsal, whatever, is like. He has a woman who knows that she's like interacting with these actors, right? But then sometimes he like rug pulls and says like, "Hey, you're interacting with a real person. Actually, it's an actor." Yeah, I don't feel like it's like quite the same thing because this is like way more. It's like literature. It's technology driven. It goes all these different places. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I like Nathan Fielder. I like Nathan For You a lot. Very funny show. But yeah, sick. Okay. You all may stand now. Oh, wait. Okay, very last thing. I have a Substack and a podcast. Of course I do. It's called 10 Minutes to Ping Pong is the Substack, and Dunk Tank is the podcast. So, check that out, like and subscribe. Thank you very much for coming.